Geocachomaniacs.
GeoGearHeads.
Welcome back to GeoGearHeads episode 331, and we're going to be talking today about geocaching competitions, but really this is about how to challenge yourself and hopefully keep you into that caching routine. You want to keep moving with it. I'm Daryl W4, back as usual with Chris of the Northwest.
Hello there, and I think this is our best podcast ever. Not that I'm competitive.
No, this is going to be our best one.
Oh, okay.
It's just going to be the best.
It is so totally the best. Well, it's only the best because we have a special guest with us tonight. That's Geo Monkey Tiger! Exclamation point. Geo Monkey Tiger! Is that how
Exactly.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you. The exclamation point's important because you can't do those anymore. So
Very true.
You're right.
And
nor can
doesn't
you
that
do
mess
spaces
with-
anymore.
no
True.
special punctuation or spaces. So I'm proud of that exclamation point and happy to have it there.
You're going to hold on to that.
Mess
aren't
with
you?
your awards and stuff because they were having problems with that with the Mary Hides.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Did you complete the Mary Hide, and if so, did you get the tracking number?
I did. I got everything just fine.
Okay,
In fact,
so hey, you're good. I think it was like I know Spaces threw it off, but I think there was something else that was throwing it off too.
No, Space was the one after the Mary Hyde.
Ha ha ha.
See? Okay. Hey, come on. It's the only joke I got right now. And it wasn't
I
even
think
in
it
the
was-
script.
No, it wasn't. I think it was spaces, underscores, and hyphens. I think were problems, or no, ampersands. I think those
Yeah,
are the
the
ones that
and,
we
yeah.
confirmed were problems. Where if you had any of those, it didn't work. But I have one quick correction though from last week's show. I incorrectly credited a question to Scrapcat, which actually came to Fish Out of Water. I'm sorry about that. And only claim I was too tired to be trying to tie caching names to real names on the fly. Both are local cachers who I regularly run into at local events, and I should have known better, but it's too late for me over here, I guess. So
Daryl,
sorry about that.
Day drinking before the shows.
The only thing I was drinking, I swear, was water, and lots of it because I was about to choke. Which I'm about to do now. We were commenting before the show that I've had like a cough for a little over a week now. Actually, I think it might be going on close to 2 weeks. So if I disappear for a moment, guys, and you're watching the audio and you wonder why, that's why. Or
We'll
watching
just
the
sit here
video.
quietly and wonder what's going to happen to you.
Yes. Or how do you watch audio? See, this is how tired I currently am already. Anyway, now GeoMonkey Tiger is the guy who's responsible for the GGA weekly contest. So before we actually get into the meat of tonight's show, why don't you give us a little bit of an idea of what that's about?
Sure. So I'll do my best to explain it here. So the GGA is the Georgia Geocachers Association. We're a statewide geocaching group where we actually hold the claim to fame that we're the first geocaching group ever. So we're kind of excited about that. But as we were going into this year, one of our prime objectives for geocaching or for geocachers is how do we encourage people to geocache, right? How do we encourage them to get out, have some fun, do some things, try some things out? And of course, there's a lot of things we want to do. We want to get people out caching. We want people to come to our events. We want people to learn things and learn new things and things they didn't know before. We want, folks excited and engaged, like on our Facebook page and such. So when we were talking about what we can do, we kind of started coming up with this idea about doing kind of a weekly challenge kind of thing. And it's certainly not original. We pulled a lot of different things that you see already out there and just kind of pulled them together to fit our format. But we wanted to come up with a way to maybe get folks out and try some different things. So we came up with a challenge each week, and we wanted it to be available pretty much to anyone. We wanted people, whether they were new cachers, experienced cachers, whether they were very physically able or not as physically able to be able to complete the challenges. So when we did this, we came up with this idea of levels. So each week we have a challenge, and there's 3 levels to the challenge, and we call them bronze, silver, and gold. The bronze challenges are pretty much doable by anybody. Any cacher should be able to do the bronze. The silver challenge is a little bit tougher, and then the gold is supposed to be pretty tough. You'll have to work a bit. You won't do the gold on accident. Each week we give points based on that. So typically bronze is 1, silver is 3, gold is 7, and you'll earn these points. And we do 2 things with those points. One, we put them on a leaderboard so people can compare themselves and see how they rank amongst their friends. And not surprisingly, there's a little bit of competition going on in that leaderboard there. So that's kind of fun to watch. But then secondly, if you're one of our official GGA members, we put your name in for a prize drawing each month at our monthly event, and the number of points you rack up is the number of tickets. So if you do all golds, you'll have more entries into that monthly prize drawing that we do. And that's basically it. We publish a new challenge. So far, we've been publishing one every week, and they typically we publish the challenges on Sunday nights, and we give people from Monday to Sunday to complete the challenge, and a couple more days for them to turn in we ask them to submit an email of proof that they've finished the challenge, and we give them a couple days after the challenge period's end to submit that proof.
Well,
so it
Mr.
sounds like
Tiger, would you give us an example of what's the current challenge?
Sure.
I mean, how difficult are these?
Well, this week's challenge, and you think I would have had that up on my screen here. That would have just made way too much sense. This week's challenge is, and you would really think I would know
Easy
it.
Street?
Yes. So that's the other thing too. We name all of our challenges after songs. So this week's challenge is 1 terrain caches. So it challenges cachers to find any cache with a 1 terrain. And so for bronze, you have to find 2 caches with a 1 terrain. For silver, you have to find 5 caches with a 1 terrain. And then for gold, you have to find 7 caches with a 1 terrain, and you have to have at least 3 different difficulty ratings. So they can't be all 1-1s.
So when you say, if you won't do the gold by accident, you really could do the bronze and almost the silver.
Yes.
This week by accident and go, oh, look at that, I've completed it.
Exactly. If you're going out caching, with a minimal effort, you can do the bronze. And that's what we wanted. We're I know me and some of my friends can be really crazy and go on 22-hour days and cache all over the state and grab all kinds of crazy things. And we wanted something out there for the people that like to challenge themselves, to have something to challenge themselves. But we also know that there's lots of cachers that don't cache like that. There's lots of cachers that can get out for, an hour or 2 a week. And we wanted something that would be attainable for them as well, so they could be part of it and enjoy the fun as well. And we purposely try to vary the challenges each week so that we do different things. So this week it was about 1 terrains. Last week we did we were a little more focused on difficulty, and the gold level challenge was finding a cache with whole number difficulty. So the challenge was to find a 1 difficulty, a 2 difficulty, 3, 4, and 5. And push people to get out there and try those. And then the silver and bronze levels were, variations of that, less of that.
Nice. So in the chat, I don't want to put in the wrong name, and suddenly it just left me. Limax says, boy, finding caches with 1 terrain is difficult. They're almost all 1.5.
It is. It really is. A few weeks ago, we did a similar challenge, which was a 1-1 challenge. So it was all about 1-1s. And I actually enjoyed that challenge a lot because a lot of people, their initial reaction was, what are you doing? That's going to be super easy. There are 1-1s all over the place. And I said, you might want to take a look at that map. There aren't as many as you think there are. And then my second favorite part about that challenge was so many people at the end of the 1-1s came back and said, there's some really cool 1-1s out there that I just never noticed before, and they had a good time with it. So, that's kind of the point. But yes, we try to look for things that maybe you think might be easy, but aren't as easy as you think. And especially when you talk about 1 terrain, finding multiple levels of difficulty as well.
Well, one more question from Limax before we move on. So Limax, you can't ask anymore. You've reached your limit.
Go easy on Limax.
You have to be in Georgia to do this.
So there's two different parts to the challenge. The first is completing the challenge and getting points to the scoreboard. And we literally will allow anybody that wants to join in on the fun. So, and we already have a number of cachers that aren't in Georgia. We've got 5 or 6 people that have been playing along that are from other states, have never been here, and they're just like, hey, this looks like fun. We want to join. They play, they're on the challenge, they're on the leaderboard. Everything is there. The monthly prize drawings, we do limit to our GGA members, and GGA members are those that have attended a GGA event. Now, interestingly enough, we have GGA members that have since moved from Georgia that are participating in the challenge, and they're eligible for that. And by the way, when we do the prize drawings each month, we don't make it a requirement. We do them at our monthly events, and we purposely didn't make it a requirement that you had to be there to win. So we will mail you the prize if you win. But the additional little incentive is if you come to the meeting, however many raffle entries you've gained for that, we'll double them for that. So if you earn 28 entries, say you got 4 golds for the month, if you come to the GGA event where we do the drawing, we'll put another 28 in there for you, and you'll have 56 chances now.
Wow.
Yeah, Buffalo Bob in the chat is saying that he's in Kentucky and has been doing the GGA challenges. So,
and you know, Buffalo Bob is an interesting guy to me because he's got 2 exclamation marks on his GeoNick. So even better than my one. I'm quite envious.
Is it Buffalo Bob Bang Bang?
I suppose it could be.
One of the reasons that we got you on was because we were talking on previous shows about some of the other challenges that we're running, and I had mentioned the caching place had done the challenges, and this is one of the coins that I got from them, and it was like a all summer long kind of thing. And this one is the Orient Express Quest, and it was very cool, but that kind of stuff had pretty much disappeared. So I'm happy to see that something's coming back like that with the GGA challenges.
We've had a lot of people really enjoying the challenges this year, so we've been very pleased. We've had a lot of people taking part in the challenges, enjoying them week to week, and we've had a lot of engagement on our Facebook page too, which is great. People are sharing pictures of their caching adventures and going for the gold. I get tickled to death. I'll see friends logs on your feed, or even I have a ridiculous number of caches on my watch list, but I'll see caches or logs pop up. They'll say, I'm working on this week's GGA challenge. I'm like, yes. So it's great to see that. It's just fun to see that.
And you're going to be doing a whole show on those with Geocache Talk, 2 weeks from now?
Yes, the 13th.
13th.
So
people can find out a lot more about it then. But before we move on, GSM X2 wants to know how you actually join the challenge.
You can go to our website. Our website is ggaonline.org, and I'm guessing you can put that in your show notes or whatever as well if it's not already there. It's ggaonline.org, and we have a forum section, and you'll see a link for that at the top. And in the forum section, there's an entire section devoted to challenges. The rules are posted there. We post the weekly challenges and the weekly scoreboards, and you can go there and get all the information. Basically, the caches you can find can be anywhere. We don't have any geographic restrictions on the caches, other than they have to meet the criteria for the cache for that, or for the challenge that week. And then there'll be an email address in the instructions. You send it in, and you're part of the challenges.
Thank you very much. And let's move on and get into some of the meat. And GeoMonkey Tiger went and did a nice outline of a bunch of different tiers. So why don't we start off with that first one? You talk about progressing yourself as a geocacher. So again, we're talking about how to challenge yourself into caching more often is really what it comes down to. Keeping the energy going.
And, you know, I try to think about this when you and I had talked about what you wanted for the show and such. I try to think about this in terms of my experience. And I don't know how typical my experience is compared to others, but I know when I was a new cacher that pretty much I just wanted to find caches, right? I didn't care I didn't care what they were. Hey, what the heck? You can hide a cache under this box at the bottom of a light post? How ingenious. Who would have ever thought of that? I mean, you were just excited to grab the caches, and pretty much like the only motivation I know I had early on was a kind of mini milestones, right? Oh, I'm going to hit my 50th cache coming up, or I'm going to hit my 100th cache. This is really cool. Or maps. And I know early on when I was caching, the way I would plan a caching day, if you want to call it planning a caching day, is I'd look at the map and go, oh, look at all the caches in this little park here, or look at all the caches in this, strip of highway here. Let's go here today and do caches. And you just literally go and try it. Your goal was to kind of do every single cache that you could do. And I know I never really thought too much about anything else other than perhaps hiding my own cache. That was the only other thought that I had. I think though, as you start getting into it more, you start paying attention to kind of all those cool statistics that are out there. So you see the stats that are on the geocaching page. You start looking at things like your DT rating, right? Hey, I've got all these boxes on my geocache statistics and they're all empty, and I'm one of those people that gets really irritated when you see empty boxes, right? You have to fill them in, check them in, like, oh, why is there that whole row is done except for the 5, 4.5? How hard could that be? Right. So I think you start kind of looking at some of the statistical based things that you see out there. I think a lot of people perhaps somewhat early in their careers think about streaks, right? That's another one that's, hey, I can go get a cache every day. I see this thing tracked on my geo statistics of how many days that I've got and which days I've found caches and things like that. So I kind of think about that. And then the other thing is kind of your basic maps, right? So, hey, I've got a cache. Here's that map of the United States, and I've got a cache in Georgia. Ooh, it'd be kind of cool if Tennessee were green. I'm going to be going near Tennessee. I should pop across that border and grab a Tennessee cache, right? So, I mean, again, that's kind of that. And then someday you discover Project GC, and then holy cow, now I've got a whole bunch more statistics to play with. And I think the big ones people get hooked on early are the Jasmer, trying to fill that out. And we're actually quite lucky in Georgia. We have so many Jasmer caches that are easy day trips from Atlanta. You look at the date place grid because, hey, that's another thing where the box are there. And you're like, ooh, this box is empty. I need to fill this box in. And then I think the other thing you start looking more closely at are those county maps, right? And again, here in Georgia, we have 159 counties. So we have a lot of little blocks to fill in. Second most counties in the US, thank you. In case anybody was curious, only behind Texas. And, you start kind of looking at that. And I think that's, again, in my mind, it's kind of a natural progression of how people go. As they keep going through, I think then cachers look for more things, right? They graduate from counties to DeLorme, which is similar, but obviously not the same. And then, of course, people start looking at challenge caches. So what kind of challenge caches are there out there? Well, people work on their well-rounded cacher. So grabbing that 81 caches, filling it in before either your state's well-rounded cacher challenge, or I know I'm trying to do the California standard, so the April 5th, 2007 standard. You start looking at cache sizes. As my friends will attest to, I've been obsessed with finding large caches lately. So every time we go out, I'm like, I want to get 100 large. I want to get 100 large. So we'll go out and we'll be like, oh, you taking us to another large cache? Yes, we are. We're driving 40 minutes out of the way to get this large cache. That's what happens when you let me plan the caching day. Thank you. Which, by the way, I wanted to get it to 100. I'm at 99 right now. So I'm feeling really good. I'm feeling like that's going to happen real soon. But you start looking at things like sizes, types, oh, I want to get all the virtuals in my state, or I want to get all the earth caches in my state, or even I want to get all the Warregos in my state, those kind of things as well. And then you start looking at different, even kind of streak challenges. So I did my own streak a year ago, a little over a year ago. I did a 404-day streak that ended in January of this year. And I started doing silly things like, you know what? It's May. I'm going to get a multi every day in May. That's going to be my cache of the day, will be a multi at some point. And then in June, I'm going to do a puzzle every day. And and I came up with little themes along the way, some of them based on different challenge caches that I've seen. I saw a challenge cache where you had to do a different CO every day for 35 days. And I thought, oh, that'll be fun. I'll go do that. That'll give me something to do. And it kind of kept me going out for my cache of the day. And I really enjoyed having something kind of different to target. It made it a lot harder in some cases, but it was fun to have something to target and do and just be a challenge rather than I'm just going to run out and grab a cache today.
Well, that's kind of the point of these kind of challenges, is it just gives you a goal and keeps you motivated, when otherwise you might just get, sick and burned out. Like so many people I know who do the big power trails like the ET Highway or Route 66, and there's others, of course, go and do that, and then it's like, oh, I am so burned out on caching, I just need to take a month off.
Exactly. Or you hear the same from people that finish long streaks, right? Yeah. I finished a 2-year streak. I'm not caching for 6 months.
Mm-hmm. Right. Yeah. Well, in some cases, it's I've cleared out my whole area. Now what am I going to do?
Exactly.
So yeah, it's just about really giving you something to work for. And there's a lot of this. And this is, I think, the real beauty of the challenge caches is they give you something to work for if that's what you want to do. So for most of our listeners, I think that's going to be something they definitely want to check out, is what are your local caches, the challenge caches that you don't necessarily qualify for yet that you might be able to qualify for shortly. And Project GC comes in handy for that kind of stuff.
Yes.
Yeah,
absolutely.
if you're a premium member, it actually tells you all of the ones that you're qualified for in a given area.
Yes. Can I throw out my tip that I like for challenge caches as well?
Absolutely.
When my favorite thing that I like to do is if I'm scouring an area for challenge caches, right? And they're somewhat easy to find because you can I use the official geocaching page a lot more than Project GC probably for finding challenge caches. And you can search for mystery caches with the word challenge in the name, right? You could say, show me all the ones that are mystery challenge in Georgia, and it'll usually give you the vast majority. Now, some challenges don't say the word challenge in them anymore, but you'll get 95% of them. But what I'll often do is I'll take a look, and so I've got 30 caches that come up in the area that I'm looking at or whatever. And as I qualify for them, what I like to do is I like to update the corrected coordinates. So if you click that pencil, you can change the coordinates, and I don't do anything but copy the existing coordinates into the corrected coordinates. It doesn't move it at all, but now when I look at the map, it's that different icon, and I know that I've qualified for it. So if I'm out and about in the field, and I've done this a few times where I'm out and about, I could go, oh wait, there's that little solved icon thing. What is that? Oh, that's a challenge cache that I'm qualified for. Sweet, let me go grab it because it's a mile down the road or whatever. So I like to do that a lot.
Yeah, absolutely. That's a great tip. I also tend to put in the cache notes whatever my log is going to be for that cache, because you'll go and do the challenge checker, and half the time it spits out a list of the requirements that you've fulfilled,
right,
that you have to put into your log. So I copy that out, paste it into the cache note, and voila, I'm ready to go. I just copy that when I'm actually doing the cache, paste it into the log, and done. Nice
Boom.
and easy. I'll also put them on a list usually, though, completed. Well, for me, I usually do it just to my completed puzzles, but I know people that do it as the completed challenges, because that way they'll go look for the ones that they've completed and plan caching trips around it.
Yes. And I do that as well. I have, I'm not quite that good. I do have a list of challenge caches that I want to do. And then as I qualify for each one of the list, I make a note that I've qualified for it in addition to it. So I can see the ones both that I've qualified for and the ones that I haven't. But yeah, I think there's some really fun challenge caches. And I know those helped a lot when I was streaking. When I did, it was actually kind of a funny story. When I did my multi month, when I was doing my streak, I didn't have any reason other than I kind of like multis, and I thought, let me see if I can do 31 days of multis. And I had posted in a Facebook group that I was going to do this, and somebody said, oh, well, you should go. There's a challenge cache for having a 30-day streak of non-traditional caches. And as it worked out, this challenge cache was in Chicago, very near where I travel for work. And so it kind of worked out really well that this, this random post on a national Facebook page yielded a cache that I could actually get to that wasn't in Oregon or Maine or somewhere. And so I went and I was traveling for work a couple months later, and I went and signed the challenge cache, and I kind of told the story in there. And I happened to look at it later, and the person that signed it behind me made the comment and said, "Oh, by the way, I was the person that told the previous finder about this challenge cache," which I thought was just like small world kind of freakiness. But
Nice.
but there was that non-traditional one. There was another challenge cache I know that was 35 days of mysteries. And I turned that into kind of another mini challenge for my streak. There was another one where you had to have like 100 non-traditionals in 20 days, which was an interesting kind of challenge as well. And then I mentioned the CO challenge, which was also really interesting. I did that at the end of my streak where I found a different CO every single day. And that was really interesting as well to do.
Impressive.
No, people have done much more than that.
Well,
so. But it was fun. It was absolutely
fun.
fun.
People have done much more than that, but that's an impressive number of challenges, because you're not just finding that cache. You've got to qualify for that challenge. So you've got to find a lot of caches, and it's not just, as you said earlier, you're just not going to fall into this. You've got to plan those.
Yes. And that was, and for me, that was the really cool thing too, because I wasn't going to be a streak person. I was absolutely positively for 2.5 years of my caching career. I said, I am never doing a streak. Everybody I've ever met that's done one just talks about how it's the most miserable experience ever. And they hated it and they wanted to quit caching, and it was awful.
Keep doing it.
Yeah, exactly. And it was those darn empty squares, because I got tired of looking at the empty squares on my, the days found grid. And I said, I'm just going to go fill in the missing days, right? So if I had like Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday were missing, I would go out Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, but then wouldn't go out Friday. And it just ballooned into something big. But it was fun to find those streak-related caches or streak-related challenge caches while I was actually streaking, right? I don't know that I would go back out now and do 35 days of puzzle caches or 30 days of non-traditionals or whatever the other ones were. So it was fun that I was able to find those along the way and take advantage of it during my streak. And that would be the thing I would say too, is always, if you're interested in challenges and interested in doing these things, always be on the lookout for things that you can kind of double up on. Hey, I'm streaking anyway. It's not that much more work to go find a mystery cache every day.
Right.
Or plan it out to get a different CEO every day.
There you go. Yeah.
Okay. We have an interesting comment from GSMX2 in the chat. He says he thinks someone needs to do an intervention for the guest. And I think that does actually bring up a good point, is if you're going to get into these competitions and challenges, make sure it's not something that's going to be so overwhelming that it interferes with your life and ends up creating problems in other ways.
Absolutely. And when I did my streak, the best thing that I did was I had a really good not rhythm, but routine for it. I'm fortunate in the sense that I work from home. So the cool thing is I can go out in the morning and get real muddy and not have to worry about, I'm in my work clothes. I can't do. So I could do any cache I could. And I would get up at 6 o'clock in the morning, go out, get my cache of the day, and be back ready for work by 8 a.m. Ready to go. So I was able to incorporate that fairly easily into my routine. But you're absolutely right. It's tough. It can be very tough because there's things people want to do, and hey, we all need to live and work. And I know some people question whether or not I have a job, but I really do. And when you're talking and kind of going back to our GGA challenges, that's something that I'm also very hyper cognizant of as well. Like, what's the right level? To the person's point that I need an intervention, I hate to say it, but I'm not even the craziest amongst my caching friends. So, what seems reasonable to me, I've often had to do reality checks with other people to say, do you think this is reasonable? And then when they just get this look of horror on their face, I'm like, okay, I'm going to back that down a little bit. All right. So.
Wow.
It's impressive. We're on daily streak right now. We're, I think, at 46 days or something like that. But the problem is I've cleared out so many of the caches in the area that it does become work, and we have to plan to go out after dinner or, before we run errands or whatever. And sometimes it's half an hour to an hour of driving to get to and from a cache that we haven't found that we can actually get that day.
And I know that exactly. Like I said, when I went 2.5 years and had pretty much cleared out my close local area, and I didn't have to go super far, but I was going probably on average 8 to 12 or 8 to 15 miles a day, which doesn't sound like too much, but in rush hour traffic in the mornings, that's 30, 40 minutes in the car sometimes. So I can't tell you how many times I'd be sitting there in traffic going, wait a minute, why am I going out for a cache because it's a number on a web page? Is that really what I'm doing?
Yeah, we're definitely going to be hitting a point, hopefully after Geo Woodstock, where we're just going to stop because it's going to take too much effort that we can't afford to do it on a nightly basis. But yeah, that's going to be our saving grace as we're going to Geo Woodstock at the end of the month. So you're going to get at least one cache every day for,
yes,
the entire time you're there.
Well, and I'm sorry, circling back to the comment about the intervention, I think it is funny too, because a lot of it depends on how you cache. And I'll admit, again, this is me personally, but I tend to be a very social cacher. I don't, other than the streak that I had done, I bet you I hadn't found 50 caches out of 3,000 by myself. I just like, my favorite part of caching is being with other cachers and having fun and having an adventure and doing that. And I have a number of friends that are super focused on challenges, like even before I have a couple of friends that were hooked on grabbing counties, and I remember being in the car with them like, I don't care about this county, and they're like, no, we're driving 10 miles over the county line so you can get this cache so you can have this county. And sometimes it wasn't even a choice on my part. Like, they're just like basically taking me hostage, going, you're going in that state park and you're going to get that cache over there because you need it. You don't know you need it, but you need it. And I've got another friend though that I cache with a lot that couldn't give a flip about any challenge whatsoever. I mean, he doesn't care about his DT grid, his Jasmer. I don't even know if he knows what a Jasmer is. And solely any caching achievement that he's achieved so far has been merely by accident by being along with me, I'm pretty sure. So, I mean, I think that has a lot to do with it as well. If you're hooked with a lot of people that are into caches or into challenges and into doing challenging things, I think that tends to encourage you more to go along with those. And even again, I joked about the friends hauling me off to different counties. By the time I was kind of serious about getting all the counties in Georgia for the Georgia County Challenge, I looked down and I had 85 of the 159 counties. I was halfway there. It just, because I'd been hanging around with friends that were going all over the place. So that certainly helps, I think.
Well,
so
I know
you
a lot
need
of
friends crazier than yourself.
Much crazier than myself.
Okay,
I'm often referred to as the sane one. I'd like to think anyway, at least in my mind.
Well, I know a lot of the cachers around here do the challenges just between themselves. Also, so even going out during a day of caching, it could be like a podcaster likes to talk about Sean and catching who catches the cache first, who actually spots it first, and he keeps track and tallies it up at the end, and who that's their internal family competition for the day.
And that can be kind of fun too, especially when you're with a group of cachers, and you hope, I think to me, a perfect caching day is when everybody finds roughly the same number of caches. It always gets tough when, somebody's just the one to always lay eyes on it. And I don't ever get super competitive about it or anything, but hey, you want to find some too. I remember I was caching with a friend and we had one of those days, and we didn't find that many. We maybe found 15 or 16 caches that day. And it was just one of those days. It was pure luck. I'm not going to pretend I was any great cacher or anything, but I just managed to lay my eyes on all the caches first. And we get to the last cache, and I just decided I was going to sit back and let my friend find this cache because I'd found all the others. I sit down and look, and the cache is, I see the cache, and it's a clear plastic lock and lock. And somebody had left a toy ball that was flashing a brilliant red light, literally a flashing red light. And I'm watching my friend walk all around, over, under, checking over here, checking over there. I'm just thinking, oh my gosh, it's the flashing red light right over there. So sorry, I didn't mean to diverge, but
I love it though, because we've all run into that.
oh yes.
Yeah, and how many times have you gone caching? You're, by yourself or with other people. You're ready to give up, and then you like smack into it. It hits you right in the face.
Oh, absolutely. And and vice versa. My friend missed the flashing red ball, but I will admit I took him to a cache that I'd hunted near my house. I'm like, dude, I just want you to verify. I've been here 4 times. It's not here. It's supposed to be a 1-1. It is not here. And he reaches down and goes, "Isn't this it?" Thanks. Yeah, that's it. Yeah, thanks.
No,
Appreciate
not that
that.
one. The other one I was here.
Well, we are getting close to the end of the show. Why don't we talk a little bit about what actually makes for a good challenge, though, before we take off?
When we talk about like our GGA challenges, and I think there's different types of challenges, right? So when you talk about our GGA challenges, they're kind of meant to be done in a week, right? So you have long-term and short-term challenges, but I think any challenge, it needs to be measurable, obviously. I mean, that may be just a dumb and obvious thing to say, but it's got to be something that's not only measurable, but somewhat reasonably measurable as well, whether it's via challenge checker, which those are super handy for alphabet challenges and things like that, or just, in a statistical kind of thing. I think it needs to be measurable. I think the other thing when we do our GGA challenges anyway, is we really like to have multiple levels. So it's got to be something that you could do at that bronze, silver, gold. I think a good challenge makes you do things that you're not necessarily comfortable with. It gets you to explore things. A challenge to do 10 Waragos is interesting because not a lot of people do Waragos, right? People are just inherently scared of them, or they're scared of multis or some of the different types of caches. And I think especially as a newer cacher, I think these are great. And actually, I think that's one thing that probably we can use more of, are some of these kind of cool lower level challenges. There's a challenge. I'm sure there's a challenge out there for finding 100 multis or finding 50 multis in a day or something like that. But I think a lot of newer cachers would benefit from a challenge cache that was just find 10 multis, right? I mean, it would get people out there. Hey, I've been scared to do this multi, but there's this interesting looking challenge cache over here. I'm going to try it out. And all of a sudden they're doing something new and something different. So I think that's really the good sign. The CO contest that I mentioned before, or the challenge that I mentioned before, that was a cool one because it really made me realize how many different COs there are. I wound up, the challenge was 30, I think it was 30 days or 35 days. And I decided to end my streak on that. I did 109 days of a different CO every day. And it was just fascinating to me that there were 109 COs that I could get to, from my morning work radius, right? I mean, on the weekends you go out and you go further, whatever, but hey, I do have a job during the week, so I can only go so far. So it was really interesting to me that there was that many out there. So I think that's a neat challenge as well. Something that really opens your eyes to something, oh gosh, I never knew this existed, or I never knew this was possible, or this diversity was out there. So that's kind of cool as well. And kind of along the same lines, anything that teaches you to do a new skill. Maybe I didn't know how to look for, and this is a bad example, but maybe I didn't know how to look for different COs, or maybe I didn't know how to search for just certain types or certain sizes or certain DTs and things like that. And this challenge has prompted me to learn how to use the search tools that are available, either on the Groundspeak site or on Project GC. So, hey, I've just learned a new skill and I've learned a new way to do this. And I now, I know more than I did before. So I think those are the biggest things in terms of challenges that I look for. Something creative, something to get me out of my comfort zone, something to make me think a little bit.
Excellent.
Nice. Oh, go ahead, Daryl.
Oh, I was just going to say that you've got some great things in there. I can see, just doing some of those challenges for your like weekend trips would be, a real motivating factor. I love the idea of getting into some of these less common cache types, the ones that you don't tend to find. And that's one of the things I've liked about the recent geocaching.com promos is that they are getting into those cache types that you want to get people out there more often, because like multis around here just almost never get hit. But we're in a weird situation where mysteries tend to get a lot more attention than multis do.
When I was doing my streak and doing mysteries and multis, that was the most interesting thing, was how lonely a lot of those caches were. It was, I'd be finding caches that nobody had been found in a year and a half, 2 or 3 years, that were all perfectly great shape, just waiting to be found. But it was just always interesting to me, like, hey, this is a really cool cache. And by the way, it wasn't that hard of a multi, and just, unfortunately, I think people get scared by the blues and the oranges on the map. And I think that's, I know for our GGA challenges, that's something I've really been kind of pushing where I can, is finding opportunities to go try these different types of caches, because I assure you they're a ton of fun. And I know when I started, I was scared on a multi. I didn't know how it worked, or scared on a puzzle. Where do you even start on a puzzle? I know those are the scariest things sometimes, but they're also a ton of fun. So it's great anytime something can encourage folks to get out and do those.
Well, it's one of the reasons why I like the idea of having a mentor as a new cacher. Because when I got into caching, anything outside of the traditional just really confused the heck out of me. That was, of course, what is it, like 13 years ago now? And a lot has changed. It's definitely a lot easier with the apps and whatnot to figure out what it is. But, my assumption was a geocache, you go to the spot and you look for the box. Not how it works with a lot of those.
No. Exactly right. Yeah. No, I agree with you, Daryl. The geocaching.com promotions have gotten you to think outside the box. That was a bad pun. But perhaps, it's a earth cache or a virtual, something that, that you don't, the newer cachers don't necessarily look for.
Yeah, and earth caches and where it goes tend to be a little bit scarce in some areas. So, if you're going to be planning challenges around that, and you have a destination, make sure you actually have those.
That's true. Well, we tend to live in rural areas with a lot of caches. There are people who, may have to drive several miles just to find a cache. So we got to take that into consideration as well.
Absolutely. But again, that might be the motivation that they need to get out and find those caches.
That's
exactly.
True. And find more caches.
I know when we did our challenges, and some of our challenges, and I know I'm speaking specifically of just the GGA weekly challenges, but we tried to take that into account, right? A challenge that might be super easy in Atlanta because the cache density might be much harder in, say, Valdosta, which doesn't, is more rural and doesn't have the cache density. And so in a lot of places, or some of the tougher challenges, we actually gave people the opportunity to place a cache to meet the challenge requirement, figuring that just boosted it, and now there's more caches for folks to find, and it keeps the game going. So that's the other thing too. If there aren't a lot of caches that meet a certain criteria, become proficient in creating them, and create a little bit of a fun pocket there.
Yeah, we should be wrapping up pretty soon, but on the daily streak, everyone assumes that the daily streak should be finding caches, but why not do a daily streak of hiding caches? Because we had a cacher in this area. Yeah, we had a cacher in this area who did the CAD series, Cache a Day. And he put just information about the day, what happened on this day in history kind of stuff, the, holiday kind of things that happened on the day. And I'm sure he went and created all of those in advance and submitted them, on the day that it actually was intended. But that's a lot of work to create 365 caches in a year.
When you were saying that, I was thinking he did a month or something, but wow, 365. That's amazing.
No, it's cache a day, one cache each and every day.
Wow.
That'd be a fun challenge to
task.
do all those on the day.
There were so many people doing that. Believe it or not, I want to say at least a dozen people in the area.
I don't believe it, but you can keep going.
But yeah, some people I've talked with are doing, cache a month, hide a cache a month. Yeah, and that's a good goal. My problem is simply I don't have the time to find that many good spots, and getting the permission is really what ties me up on those caches.
Hiding caches is not an easy thing.
No,
it's definitely not.
But for some people,
Daryl, if you were motivated, you would find the time.
Yeah, and it would probably mean I'm not podcasting anymore, and probably not doing my daily find streak. But that's what it is. Is what is the challenge that's going to get you motivated in doing what you want to do?
Well, see, you're all set up. Find your daily cache, walk 530 feet away, and drop a cache. You're all set. I don't know why that sounds hard. I mean, the just trouble is park at the midpoint, so then you only walk 250 over here, and then 250. It's a perfect plan.
See, the problem is that most of the spots around here, if that's a possibility, it's already been done. I 4 years ago, I guess, I went and tried to do a series of puzzle caches in this area. I had to hide the caches at least 6 different times on average.
Wow.
Because there were that many puzzle finals around that I hadn't known were there. So it's like, oh, here's a spot I can go and find a cache. No, sorry, too close to this one. Oh, you're like right on top of this one. It's like, oh, man. So those puzzles.
That's when you say, wait, I'm right on top of it. As in, how many feet away? In which direction? Really? I just need to know so I can move it properly.
Well, that's the worst part is that the reviewer that was emailing me assumed that I had already done that cache because it had been out for so long. And it's just one I never did because it requires, a Windows program to do it that, when I tried running it on mine, crashed. So I didn't have a way to decode the image. And I just left it because, fine, whatever. And of course, something like that, it's like, I don't want to get the chords from someone else, right? I want to do it myself.
It's the only way to do it.
All right. Well, thank you so much for joining us. We will, of course, have the links to the GGA contests and to your profile in the show notes. Any quick parting thoughts, though?
The most important thing I think on a challenge is getting out and having fun. If you do that, then you've met the challenge immediately. So
I can go claim those challenges just because I had fun. I have it on your authority. I'm going to go do it.
Well, remember, there's different levels. So, you might not be quite at like the gold level for having fun, but
okay,
you're close. You're really close.
Okay. Well, thank you so much for coming on the show.
Thank you for having me. I really enjoyed it.
It was, well, you're not a challenging guest. How's that? Though the topic was challenging. You were a very easy guest to have on the show.
I think that's good. I think that's good.
Okay. Hey, we've got some exciting news for people with Amazon-powered smart speakers. We have a new, are you ready for this? Alexa app. Sorry for anyone whose speaker just went off. I can't say it's allowed to do it, but the A word instead. And
you can call it an echo.
An echo. There we go. Oh, I like that.
Well, but they're not all echoes, and you can't actually change the keyword to echo.
Well, that's true, but they'll know what you're talking about.
Yeah. True. But this is one of the questions I have. Does the app actually work on the Sonos? Because there are those Alexa-powered Sonos speakers now.
Well, and Alexa's in several things.
Absolutely. Yeah. There's so many devices like the Sonos. There's the it's the Oofy something or other. That's the ultra cheap one from Anchor.
But I've seen some other devices that are like, what? That's got Alexa in it. Anyway, thanks to the team at Libsyn, we have a beta release of the GeoGearHeads app, which allows things like Echo speakers to play our shows directly. You can start on one Echo and resume on another. It's actually pretty cool. All you need to do is tell the device, how's that, to enable GeoGearHeads, or you can enable it through the device app or website through the link on the show notes. Try it out and let us know how it works for you.
Yeah, we are really curious, and they are looking for the feedback since this is a beta period. But we do have a bunch of great shows coming up next week. For episode 332 is going to be attending Megas and Gigas. We've got Shermanator 18 and Memphis Mafia joining us for that one. So many people are going to be excited for episode 333, not just because it's repeating digits, but it's cachetour.no. So we're going to learn how to get started with that app, with that website, I probably should say, from Plato Attic, who's also going to be speaking at Geo Woodstock the next weekend, which is where Chris and I are going to be doing a live show, we hope, live streaming show, but a live show for Randomize 334. Well, that's not the randomized number, but
X
yeah, X
Lixfix.
Lix. I was just going to say Lixfix.
Yeah,
I like that. Randomized Lixfix. So it's just going to be Chris and I from the Giga event. So that's going to be a lot of fun, we hope, and hopefully it's going to be live. Unfortunately, no patron show because of that as well. But check that one out. It might be a little bit late on the feed, depending on, hotel Wi-Fi and whatnot. But the week after that, the last one of May, 335, is going to be our Trackable 6 show. And it's going to be a little bit special. We're recording 2 hours early because we've got Annie Love on the show, and she's got to jump out and have some other engagements that she's got to go to. So we're going to be doing that one 2 hours early. So that's 7 p.m. Eastern or 4 p.m. Pacific, right, Chris? 4 p.m.?
4 p.m. Pacific, yes.
Yes.
And we said just because it's Annie, we'll record early. If it was anybody else, we'd say, no, you got to wait. And
for anyone who doesn't know, Annie Love is over at Geocaching HQ, and she's big on the trackable stuff over there.
Yes, she is.
And I suppose because it's a trackable thing, we're probably going to have some contests to go with it. So make sure to check that show out.
Got to put some pressure on Annie.
Oh, yes. Lots of pressure. Give us trackables.
There you go. Until you get trackables from Annie's, make sure you check out the Cachemaniacs website at cachemaniacs.com for more on the GeoGearHeads, including show notes for this and all of our episodes. We love hearing from our listeners. So leave us feedback by emailing geogearheads at cachemaniacs.com or through social media. Your support helps keep the Cachemaniac shows coming. Please consider becoming a patron through the link on our website to support the Cachemaniac shows. GeoGearHeads is produced by Chris Umfenauer and Daryl Wattenberg. The show's copyright 2018 by Daryl Wattenberg. All rights reserved.